What if the tattoos on her skin aren't just art, but warnings? Most men look at tattoos and see beauty, mystery, maybe even a sign of a free spirit. The ink catches the eye, sparks desire, and makes you feel like you've met someone bold, fearless, and unforgettable. But what if the truth behind those tattoos is far more dangerous than you think? What if the ink is not only a story of her past, but also a map of the risks you'll face in the future? For centuries, tattoos have been seen as symbols of rebellion, of freedom, of identity. But modern psychology has revealed something deeper. Tattoos often carry with them patterns of behavior, signals about personality traits, and even hidden scars of the mind and heart. They aren't just decorations, they are clues. And if you ignore them, you may find yourself trapped in chaos you never saw coming. The truth is this: dating a woman with tattoos can feel electrifying at first. She's impulsive, adventurous, exciting, the kind of energy that sweeps you off your feet. She makes you feel alive. But what begins as a thrill can slowly transform into instability. What once looked like passion may reveal itself as recklessness, and the same intensity that drew you in can later burn you down. That's why today, we're diving into the 11 hidden risks of dating a woman with tattoos, risks backed by research, psychology, and real-life patterns. From impulsivity to unresolved trauma, from attention-seeking to cycles of endless drama, these aren't just small quirks. They are red flags waving right in front of your eyes. And before you think this is about judgment, let me be clear. Not every woman with tattoos is toxic, but patterns matter more than exceptions. Psychology isn't about wishful thinking, it's about recognizing signals. And when those signals are ignored, men pay the price. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear might change the way you look at tattoos forever. This isn't about art, this is about risk. Stay tuned till the end. And if you're serious about protecting your peace, subscribe to True Stoic Way, for wisdom society won't tell you. Risk 1. Impulsivity. That doesn't end with the tattoo. Impulsivity sounds exciting, at least at first. She's the woman who says yes to last-minute adventures, who laughs at rules, who turns an ordinary night into an unforgettable story. That kind of energy is magnetic. It makes you feel like you've met someone who brings fire into your life. And in the beginning, it's intoxicating. But here's the problem. Impulsivity doesn't stay in one corner of her life. It spreads. The same thrill-seeking nature that got her the tattoo often spills into other areas: money, arguments, even fidelity. One day she's buying things you can't afford. The next she's exploding in anger over something trivial. And when temptation comes along, that same live-for-the-moment mindset can make her stray. Think about it. A tattoo is a permanent mark often chosen in a fleeting moment. It could be after a breakup, a night of drinking, or a sudden wave of emotion. That decision-making pattern, acting now, dealing with consequences later, doesn't vanish when the ink dries. It tends to repeat itself in relationships, and relationships are built on something impulsivity can't provide: patience, consistency, and delayed gratification. Love requires someone who can think long-term, who can resist temptation, who can value tomorrow as much as today. If her psychology leans too heavily on do what feels good now, you'll eventually find yourself paying the cost. What feels thrilling at the start soon becomes unstable. Instability kills relationships faster than almost anything else. And that's the hidden risk. What begins as fun becomes chaos, and what felt like passion transforms into unpredictability. Which leads us to the next question. Why does this impulsivity show up so often in women with tattoos? The answer lies deeper, often in struggles with mental health. Risk 2. The hidden link to mental health struggles. For many women, tattoos aren't just decoration, they're coping mechanisms, marks of trauma, symbols of pain, attempts to take control of a body or a past that once felt uncontrollable. On the surface, it can look poetic. A bird after heartbreak, a quote after loss, a phoenix after betrayal. The story sounds empowering. But here's the truth most men overlook. If the wounds that inspired the ink haven't healed, then the tattoo isn't closure. It's camouflage. And camouflage doesn't erase pain. It just hides it until it resurfaces. Dating a woman with multiple tattoos often means dating her unresolved struggles. Anxiety, depression, self-harm histories, all of these are statistically higher among women with ink. And pain doesn't sit quietly in a relationship. It shows up as mood swings, emotional withdrawal, or sudden volatility. One day she's overflowing with affection. The next she's distant, cold, or even self-destructive. The intensity of it all can be seductive. Her passion, her darkness, her edge. It feels real, deep, unlike anything you've known. But intensity isn't the same as stability. Men often confuse the two, thinking that chaos means depth, when in reality it only signals instability. This doesn't mean she's a bad person. It means she's human. But it also means you have to ask yourself, are you ready to carry the weight of someone else's unhealed pain? Because if she's still at war with herself, you won't be her partner, you'll be her battleground. If you've ever carried the weight of someone else's unhealed pain, you know why men need Stoic strength. Subscribe to True Stoic Way. Don't just survive relationships, master them. And this brings us to the next risk. If her inner world is shaped by unresolved battles, how does that express itself outwardly? The answer lies in the endless craving for attention. Risk 3. Attention-seeking that never ends. Let's be brutally honest. Tattoos are designed to be seen. They're not hidden symbols. They are public statements carved into skin, silent messages that say, "Look at me." While many women will claim they got their tattoos for themselves, psychology tells another story. Studies show strong correlations between tattoos, narcissistic traits, and a higher need for external validation. Here's why this matters in relationships. If her sense of worth depends on outside approval, your attention will never be enough. No matter how much love you give, she will crave more. More likes on Instagram, more stares at the bar, more compliments from strangers. Your presence may satisfy her for a while, but her hunger for validation is insatiable. At first it feels exciting. Everyone is looking at her, noticing her, and you get the ego boost of being the man by her side. But slowly, the thrill turns sour. She'll post suggestive photos online and dismiss your concerns with, "You're just insecure." She'll flirt publicly, calling it harmless confidence, while feeding on the stares of other men. Each compliment, each DM, each glance is a hit of dopamine, and soon, you're no longer her focus. This is the hidden danger. When a woman is wired for attention-seeking, you're not her only audience. You're competing with the world. And when attention-seeking collides with impulsivity, temptation is never far away. So when you see the ink, ask yourself, is it true self-expression or is it advertising? Because if it's the latter, what looks like confidence today may become betrayal tomorrow. And that's where we move next. When her need for attention meets her craving for novelty, the ink often hides something even more dangerous: risky sexual behavior. Risk 4. Risky sexual behavior, hidden beneath the ink. One of the most consistent findings in sociological and psychological research is the connection between tattoos and risky sexual behavior. Studies show that women with tattoos report a higher number of sexual partners and are more open to casual encounters than their non-tattooed peers. Why? Because tattoos are often tied to sensation-seeking, the craving for novelty, excitement, and rebellion against social norms. And that craving doesn't stop at the skin. It often extends into intimacy. On the one hand, this can be magnetic. She might be adventurous, passionate, and fiery in the bedroom. The same thrill-seeking energy that drew her to ink can make her appear exciting and irresistible. Many men mistake this for compatibility, confusing intensity with commitment. But here's the other side of the blade. That thrill-seeking nature doesn't pair well with long-term monogamy. What happens when the excitement of the relationship fades into routine? When passion turns into patterns? For someone wired for novelty, stability feels like a prison. She may begin chasing new experiences, seeking fresh validation, or even stepping outside the relationship to satisfy her restless energy. The psychology is clear. Tattoos are often an outward marker of inward openness to risk. And when passion lacks discipline, it burns bright and dies fast, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. This is why men need to see beyond the surface. What looks like raw chemistry today may be the very thing that destroys trust tomorrow. True Stoic way exists to warn men of the hidden patterns before they get burned. Hit subscribe and protect your future. And now consider this. If her thrill-seeking nature shows up in the most intimate parts of the relationship, how do you think it plays out when emotions flare? That's where the next danger reveals itself: aggression and conflict. Risk 5. Aggression and conflict in relationships. Another surprising link psychology has uncovered is between tattoos and higher aggression scores. Now, this doesn't mean every tattooed woman is violent, but research shows that women with ink are more likely to be confrontational, quick-tempered, and resistant to authority. And in a relationship, that tendency can turn passion into war. At first, her fire may feel intoxicating. She argues passionately, pushes back against control, and refuses to be tamed. You might even admire her defiance, mistaking it for strength. But what seems like personality in the beginning often becomes conflict in the long run. In time, small disagreements turn into full-scale battles. Boundaries are tested, respect erodes, and instead of a sanctuary, the relationship becomes an arena. What felt like playful sparring at first becomes emotional exhaustion. When a woman is wired for confrontation, peace feels like weakness, and escalation becomes her default mode. This constant tension grinds you down. Love can't thrive in an environment where war never ends. And while some men think they can handle the storm, the truth is that aggression wears away at the foundation of any partnership. It doesn't just create conflict, it destroys intimacy, erodes trust, and eventually leaves both sides scarred. But here's the deeper layer. Aggression doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's often fueled by something buried beneath the surface: old wounds, unresolved trauma, and the ghosts of a past she hasn't fully faced. And that brings us directly to the next risk. Because when the ink is more than decoration, when it becomes a shield against pain, you aren't just dealing with fire in the present, you're stepping into battles from her past. Risk 6. Tattoos as symbols of trauma and unresolved pain. For many women, tattoos aren't just ink on skin, they're armor. Each mark can be a shield, covering wounds that never fully healed. A rose after heartbreak, a phoenix after betrayal, a quote about strength after years of loss. On the surface, it looks poetic, even inspiring. But beneath the surface, those designs may not represent victory over pain. They may simply be camouflage. Because here's the harsh truth. If trauma hasn't been healed, the tattoo isn't closure. It's a mask. And masks always slip. What's hiding underneath eventually resurfaces, often in unpredictable and destructive ways. Mood swings appear without warning. She may withdraw suddenly, shutting you out emotionally. Self-sabotaging behaviors creep in, turning stability into chaos. And attachment becomes fragile, clinging one moment, pushing you away the next. This is where many men fall into the trap of the rescuer. They see her scars and think love will save her, that if they're strong enough, patient enough, they can heal what life has broken. But here's the truth no one likes to hear. You cannot save someone who hasn't chosen to save herself. Trauma that hasn't been faced will always come back, and no amount of love can erase it. Yes, you might fall for her fire, her resilience, the raw passion that makes her stand out. But understand this. Along with her beauty, you'll inherit her ghosts. And ghosts don't rest just because you showed up. This is why men need Stoic resilience. Subscribe to True Stoic Way and build the strength to stand firm, no matter her chaos. Now ask yourself, if her tattoos are shields against inner battles, how does that manifest in the world outside? The answer is clear. It often transforms into a lifelong craving for attention. Risk 7. A lifelong craving for attention. Tattoos are permanent advertisements. They announce uniqueness, rebellion, and identity to the world. And for many women, that's the point. They want to be noticed. While some will insist, "I got this for myself," psychology tells a harder truth. Tattoos are strongly correlated with attention-seeking behavior and higher levels of narcissism. The problem is that attention-seeking doesn't fade with time. In fact, it grows. At the start, you'll feel the rush of being with someone who turns heads. Strangers compliment her. People ask about her ink. She becomes the center of every room, and you get the ego boost of standing next to her. But slowly, your attention won't be enough. Validation becomes her fuel, and like any addiction, it demands more. She'll chase likes on Instagram, post more revealing photos, or subtly invite compliments from strangers. When admiration fades, she will seek it out elsewhere. And that's where danger enters, because attention-seeking often flirts with temptation. It begins innocently. A harmless comment, a playful DM, a just friends connection. But when someone's wired for validation, these little sparks can easily turn into flames. And you're left competing not just with other men, but with the entire world for her focus. For a woman who thrives on external validation, stability feels suffocating. Your loyalty may never outweigh the thrill of being admired by many, and that endless hunger for attention often leads to the next risk: rebellion. Because when validation is her lifeline, rules, boundaries, and commitments quickly feel like chains to be broken. Risk 8. A rebellion against stability. At its core, a tattoo is an act of rebellion. It challenges tradition, defies convention, and declares independence. And while that defiance may look attractive at first, it feels bold, daring, intoxicating. It carries a hidden cost. A rebellious spirit doesn't always switch off when the ink dries. For many women, the same streak that pushed them to break social norms also shows up in relationships. Commitment begins to feel like confinement. Compromise feels like surrender. Structure feels like a cage. In the honeymoon phase, that resistance might look thrilling. She seems free-spirited, untamed, unapologetic. But as time goes on, the very qualities that once drew you in begin to erode stability. Rules, boundaries, and routines, the pillars of a lasting relationship, become the very things she pushes against. Instead of peace, you'll find disruption. Instead of harmony, tension. Psychology backs this up. Studies show women with tattoos score higher in nonconformity and antisocial traits. It doesn't necessarily mean crime or danger. It simply means she's wired to resist authority and push limits. And what feels exciting in the short term often becomes exhausting in the long term. Here's the trap. Many men confuse rebellion with compatibility. They mistake her fire for depth, her resistance for strength, her chaos for passion. But passion without stability eventually burns everything down. Don't mistake rebellion for compatibility. Subscribe to True Stoic Way and learn to see beyond the surface. Because rebellion doesn't always stay sexy. Over time, it often transforms into something far less glamorous: regret. And once regret creeps in, it doesn't just haunt her, it seeps into the relationship itself. That's the shadow we'll face next. Risk 9. The shadow of regret. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Women regret their tattoos more often than men. What once felt empowering, sexy, or liberating can, years later, become a painful reminder of mistakes, poor decisions, or phases of life they wish they could erase. At first, the ink may symbolize freedom, but time has a way of changing perspectives. That butterfly she got at 20 may no longer feel meaningful at 30. The bold design she thought was unique may now feel childish or embarrassing. And regret doesn't just linger in the mirror, it seeps into her mindset. If she can regret something as permanent as a tattoo, what else might she regret? The answer is unsettling. Her choice in partners, her commitment to a relationship, even the life she's built with you. Regret breeds dissatisfaction, and dissatisfaction breeds restlessness. Soon she may begin questioning not only her past, but also her present, and you become part of the narrative she wants to rewrite. This regret is poison to long-term love. It eats away at gratitude, blinds her to stability, and makes her believe that something, or someone, better, is always out there. You'll notice it in subtle ways. Constant second-guessing, rewriting her own history, or changing her mind about what she once claimed she wanted. And regret rarely exists alone. It walks hand in hand with impulsivity, amplifying instability. Together, they create the perfect foundation for something even more destructive: divorce. That's the next risk we need to confront. The reality that women with tattoos are statistically more likely to face broken marriages and failed commitments. Risk 10. A higher likelihood of divorce. Marriage is built on stability, on patience, sacrifice, and the willingness to endure challenges together. But studies reveal a sobering truth. Women with tattoos are statistically more likely to experience divorce and relationship breakdowns than women without ink. Why? Because the very traits tied to tattoos, impulsivity, thrill-seeking, resistance to rules, don't blend well with the slow discipline marriage demands. What feels intoxicating in dating often feels suffocating in long-term commitment. The responsibilities of shared finances, raising children, and building a life together require consistency. For someone wired to chase novelty and defy structure, that consistency can feel like a prison. In the early days, her fiery independence may look attractive. She's passionate, unapologetic, and free-spirited. But once the honeymoon fades and real-life responsibilities weigh in, her psychology pushes back. Stability feels like a cage. Monogamy feels restrictive. And instead of leaning into the bond, she may begin searching for escape routes. Add to this the relentless craving for attention. If she thrives on outside validation, the steady rhythm of marriage will never be enough. The hunger for something new doesn't vanish with vows. It often grows stronger when routine sets in. What began as passion can, over time, erupt into dissatisfaction, betrayal, and ultimately divorce. A tattoo itself doesn't cause separation, but it's often a marker of deeper psychological patterns that make lasting commitment harder to sustain. Ignore those markers, and you may find yourself blindsided when the same fire that once drew you in burns your life down years later. Men who understand this protect themselves from disaster. Join the Brotherhood, subscribe to True Stoic Way today. And now we arrive at the final risk, the one that often lingers long after love has died. Divorce and regret rarely leave silence in their wake. Instead, they open the door to something far more draining, endless cycles of drama. Risk 11. The drama never ends. The final risk may be the most draining of all: drama. Studies show women with tattoos score higher in sensation-seeking, aggression, and emotional volatility. When you combine these traits, you get someone who doesn't just encounter chaos, she thrives in it. At first, the whirlwind feels addictive. She texts you non-stop, kisses like she's starving, fights with the intensity of life and death. The highs are intoxicating. The lows are devastating. To a man caught in her orbit, it can feel like the most passionate love he's ever known. But over time, the cycle reveals itself. Breakups, makeups, jealousy, tears, explosive arguments. It all blends into a storm that never clears. What once felt like passion soon becomes exhaustion. You find yourself walking on eggshells, never sure if you'll wake up to affection or hostility. Here's the cruel twist. For her, drama isn't dysfunction. It's oxygen. Peace feels boring. Calm feels lifeless. She doesn't just stir the storm, she is the storm. And for the man who longs for stability, this becomes a prison made of chaos. A tattoo doesn't guarantee a life of drama, but when combined with impulsivity, unresolved trauma, attention-seeking, and rebellion, it becomes a flashing signal. It's not just art, it's a map of cycles that can wear you down until nothing remains of your peace. And that leads us to the conclusion. Because when you put all these risks together, a bigger truth emerges, one that every man must face before he gets swept away by the beauty of the ink. So where does all of this leave us? We've walked through the 11 hidden risks of dating a woman with tattoos: impulsivity, mental health struggles, attention-seeking, risky sexual behavior, aggression, unresolved trauma, a lifelong craving for validation, rebellion against stability, the shadow of regret, a higher likelihood of divorce, and never-ending drama. Each of these on its own might not destroy a relationship, but together they form a pattern, one that research, psychology, and countless men's experiences all confirm. The pattern is clear. Tattoos are rarely just about art. They are signals. Signals of risk-taking, instability, rebellion, and unresolved wounds. Does this mean every tattooed woman is toxic? No. There will always be exceptions. But men don't get hurt because women hide who they are. Men get hurt because they ignore the signals staring them in the face. That's the uncomfortable truth. It's not deception that destroys you. It's denial. When you see tattoos, the question isn't, is this beautiful? The question is, what does this ink mean about how she lives, loves, and handles struggle? If you fail to ask that, you may mistake rebellion for compatibility, chaos for passion, and instability for depth. And in the end, you'll pay the price for not seeing what was right in front of you all along. This is where Stoicism offers men a way forward. The Stoic man doesn't judge blindly, but he doesn't ignore signals either. He observes, he understands, and he chooses with clarity. He values peace over chaos, stability over thrill, and long-term wisdom over short-term desire. That's how he protects not only his relationships but his soul. Brothers, if this truth opened your eyes, don't just scroll away. Subscribe to True Stoic Way, share this message, and join a movement of men who protect their peace, master themselves, and refuse to be destroyed by chaos. The ink tells a story. Make sure it doesn't write yours.